So I don't want to spend too much time talking about the coronavirus because it's being mentioned pretty much constantly throughout every day by everybody else. And so I just wanted to kind of touch on a few topics and let you know kind of what I've been up to while we've been pretty much stuck at home. So one bit of advice that I would have as far as navigating this new thing that's in the world is to maybe limit the amount of news that you're reading, because I don't think people should ostrich and just bury their head in the sand is what I mean by ostrich, and not like be aware of what's going on. But I do think that there's a negative side to reading the news, because the news does seem to focus on all of the negative that is happening in the world rather than giving kind of an even look at what's going on, because obviously it is not a fun thing that the coronavirus is affecting so many people in so many different ways. But I believe no matter what, whenever there's bad things happening, there's also good things happening. And unfortunately, the news seems to like to focus on just the bad things. So I think limiting the amount of news that you're reading is a healthy thing, because it kind of keeps your mind maybe open to seeing some of the positive things in life rather than just reading all of this negative stuff all the time. Through this, there's actually been some positive things that aren't quite as promoted in topics of conversation today. I think some of the good things that have come from this happening are people seem to be closer than they were before, and that sounds hilarious because, I mean, obviously people aren't supposed to be gathering, but by close, I mean, at least for me, I've noticed myself having more phone conversations with family than I maybe did before, and definitely more video calls with friends and family than I did before. And I mean, that's kind of been really special. And so, that is definitely, in my opinion, a positive thing that has come from this, because everybody before was so busy with their daily lives and work and all this stuff to actually take the time to maybe communicate quite as much, because I think, like I said, just life is busy. And when life has kind of been halted a little bit by the coronavirus, I think people have found themselves with more time, and also looking deeper into their caring and thinking, I want to know how this person is doing. And so, checking up on each other and things like that. So I think that is a positive thing that has come from this. Even though it is horrible that some people have lost their income and not been able to go and do their daily tasks and things as much, because people are supposed to, be social distancing and not getting close to others and only going out for essentials and things like that. What we do find ourselves with is a lot of extra time at home. And that, to some people, is a negative thing. And, there's so many different types of people in the world. There's those that love entertainment and being social, and their lives kind of consist of going out all the time, whether it's out to eat, to bars, to see friends. And so I think this is harder for a lot of those people. I'm handling it a little bit probably better than others, because I wouldn't call myself a shut-in, but I do enjoy being at home, because I, of course, enjoy decorating. I like cleaning and maintaining the house, because it just gives a person this good feeling. So, I probably haven't been taking it quite as hard as some of the people that really just enjoyed the outside of their home entertainment. But I would like to say, we are incredibly blessed at this time could you imagine if this happened years ago when we didn't have things like Facebook and FaceTime and Zoom and all of this stuff that really helps us be able to stay connected with each other without having to be in the same room as each other? I think that would have made this so much more incredibly difficult. And if we didn't have the option of online shopping for stuff to make it easier so we didn't have to go out as much, and if we didn't have all the entertainment that we have right now, I mean, if you really look at it, it's endless. We have things like Netflix and Amazon Prime to, video libraries just full of things to watch. And we have books, and if in today's day and age, you don't even have to go out shopping at a bookstore to get books. You can purchase them for your Kindle, and so I mean, it is a blessing that we have so much to keep ourselves occupied right now, because if this happened, like I said, years ago, that would have felt a little bit more isolating. And so, with all this time that we find ourselves with, I mean, some people still do have to work. People that are considered essential workers, or those that are able to work from home. But for the rest of us that find ourselves at home with extra time that we, never usually have, I say use this as an opportunity. I would try not to focus on the negative of being stuck indoors. I would kind of look at all the different things that maybe you've always wanted to do or always wanted to try but never had the time for. For instance, say you have the supplies and you've been meaning to put together this scrapbook, but as most of us know, scrapbooks are very time consuming, and photo albums. So this would be an opportune time to maybe get caught up on some of that stuff, and and also enjoyable to go through family photos, and to look forward to when this is all past and we can enjoy time with family again. Other things, I mean, besides the entertainment side of video games and movies and things like that we can do, I mean, or books to read. I know there's a lot of people that have just a mountain of books on their list that they want to read. Well, this is quite a nice time to be able to do that. And also, things like books, movies, and video games can be an escape from what is happening and can take your mind off it a little bit, because I do think focusing on it is not a way to stay happy, and probably can make a person even feel depressed. So what I've been doing since I've been at home is I've been kind of working on yard work. Thank goodness this happened so close to spring, when we do have the chance to spend time in our yards, if we have a yard, or maybe you have a balcony or a patio, or even if you don't, if you're allowed to go on walks and stuff like that, if your stay-at-home orders aren't just super strict, we do have the option to spend some time outside. I was just saying to somebody how this would have been probably a little bit more depressing if it happened in just like the dead of winter when it's just freezing out. And but at the same time, maybe that would have been easier for some, because then you don't really have much of an option of doing much outside, and maybe you just want to spend time indoors, cozy and reading books and watching movies and stuff. But I've really been making the most of my time staying at home. I've cleaned out flower beds outside. I've done tons of little house projects that have just been piling up that I haven't taken the time to do. I changed some hardware on this built-in cupboard at the top of the stairs that I've really wanted to do for a long time, and I've had the supplies, I just haven't done it because I needed to get a power drill out and drill new holes, because the hardware I picked out wasn't the same size before. But anyway, all these little house projects have been just so fun to work on and to get done. And I've also been fixing things around the house, like there's a bathroom door upstairs that you had to like kind of lift to be able to lock it, and which kind of makes it sound incredibly trashy, but obviously our house is old and not everything's completely square, and so yeah, I fixed that, and that was a good feeling because every time you went to that restroom, like getting that door locked was just a little bit of a struggle, and now it's just easy. So just getting kind of things like that crossed off the list has not only been nice just for everyday living, but it's made things easier. And it gives a person a feeling of accomplishment, which I think is important to stay happy. So I've been doing a lot of that stuff, and I actually found some of my needle and colored thread for doing embroidery. I've kind of wanted to do that for a while, but as those who have done it know, it's time consuming, and so I haven't really given myself time to normally do that. But point being, there really is, if you look for it, an endless list of things that you can do from home to keep yourself occupied in this time. And another thing to do is maybe look forward to the future when this passes, because think about all the gatherings that are going to happen after this passes, and think of all the shopping, and it's probably going to be crazy for quite a while, and there'll be people, I'm sure, like I've seen things on Facebook where people are talking about how it's going to be so hard to get hair appointments because people haven't been able to get haircuts for such a long time, and I'm sure that's going to be true. But once this passes, it's going to be probably a really fun time, and I think that people will take a lot away from this happening, and maybe they'll spend more time with their families and make more of an effort to visit their families than maybe they did before, because a lot of times, as people say, you don't know how special something is until it's kind of the option is taken away from you, and at the moment there's a few of those options that are kind of taken away from us. So after this goes away, I think people will be a lot more appreciative on what it was before that they weren't thinking was would ever be taken away. So I saw this Facebook post, and I thought it was incredibly accurate, because it said something about how I've never felt so under and over panicked about something at the same time. And I think why that's true is, through this whole thing, there's been multiple different outlets saying multiple different things about it. And on one end of the spectrum, people are saying, oh, you guys, you're being too dramatic about it. This is no big deal. And on the other side of the spectrum, it was, buy all the toilet paper. So it kind of, across the board, many different people saying many different things. But what I kind of kept in my mind about this the entire time is I would rather be safe than sorry. And so I think practicing caution is smart, even if you aren't 100% sure if stuff is as bad as it is or whatnot. So being safe than sorry, I think, is a good approach for many parts of life, because I don't know that a person can ever be too cautious when it comes to some stuff. And especially with something like this, there's mixed opinions about various ways that this is spreading, and how bad it is and what the death rate actually is. But if you approach it the way that I'm approaching it, which is rather be safe than sorry, I've just kind of chosen to be careful. And, so either way, I hopefully will be safe. One thing I'll say too, with the term social distancing, which means to not get close to other people, and they say to keep a 6-foot distance. I personally am more comfortable with a 10-foot distance just because 6 feet just, doesn't seem far enough, especially if somebody's coughing and stuff like that. But one thing I wanted to touch on as far as that goes, so when I've been out shopping recently, like a few days ago, I went to Menards and Byerly's, which is a grocery store, just to pick up some groceries. And so right now, social distancing is supposed to be kind of the most suggested that maybe it has been yet so far. And I noticed that there were still quite a few people that weren't kind of doing the social distancing thing. And so I guess what I wanted to say on that topic is it kind of goes to show that there's still some people that may not believe that that stuff is as bad as some are saying it is. And so like I said, rather be safe than sorry, but the other part of it is kind of a respect thing for others. So when I see people out in public wearing face masks and stuff like that, I'm not thinking that they're over panicking. I actually kind of feel bad for those people because obviously they're so scared of what's going on that they're going the extra mile to try to protect themselves. And I mean, recently they've suggested everybody wears face masks as a way to not protect ourselves, but to protect each other, because the homemade ones are supposed to not protect us if we breathe something in, but it's supposed to kind of limit a cough, or if somebody happens to be sick and not know it, they're the amount of whatnot it's spreading. So, but yeah, I mean, when I previously saw people out wearing face masks, I did not think that people were over panicking, and I just kind of felt bad that some were more afraid than others. And so my point with that is, to me today, with the way the world is right now, it is common courtesy to give people space. And so even if you may not believe that what's going on is scary or dangerous, no matter what we all believe, I think that now we should really be giving people their space, because the last thing that I'd want to do is make somebody else feel unsafe or uncomfortable. And so I am going to give everybody the space that they need, even if they're a person that maybe doesn't feel that they need it. And so I think that it is up to all of us to kind of protect each other and to make each other feel a little bit more safe and calm when we have to be out and about. So yeah, that is kind of a suggestion that I have for all of you. I'm sure many of you are great at the social distancing. I know I'm pretty awesome at it. I pretty much have been avoiding people like the plague, but like when I go to a store and I'm looking down an aisle and somebody's looking at the canned vegetables, I stand back and I wait, because really there's nothing that's really rushing me, and I don't want to rush them. And most people aren't just kind of taking their sweet time when they're out and about. They're just like trying to get as much stuff as they need as fast as they can and then get out. So I think it's important to do that, to stand back, give people space, and take turns. As far as like reading the news and stuff, when you are going into that zone of wanting to know what's happening currently, look at a wide variety of different articles, and especially things that professionals or people that know what they're talking about are saying, and then use that to collectively know the advice of what you maybe should be doing to keep yourself and others safe and healthy. What I've kind of taken away from all of it is The things that we should be doing is washing our hands. I mean, you don't have to you're sitting at your computer at home and you haven't really touched anything that has been outside the zone of where other people could have touched it. I mean, washing your hands 5,000 times a day probably isn't necessary, but if you've been out and you come home, I would definitely wash your hands and take your time doing it. I've actually gotten out bar soap because I don't know what it is about bar soap. It kind of is rustic feeling and almost a luxury feel rather than hand soap. And it usually lathers more than hand soap. And so I find that it's easier to take my time washing my hands with bar soap than hand soap. But both of them, are a good thing. So washing your hands is something that I've taken away as something that we should do to make sure that ourselves and our families stay healthy. The other thing that I've taken away is, of course, like I mentioned, the social distancing, keeping your space from other people, not inviting friends and family, even though it's very tempting, but not inviting those people. Anybody that doesn't live in your house, just not inviting them over while this is going on, because even if you think that you don't have it, or even if you're not showing symptoms that you have it, some articles say that there's a lot of people that are spreading it because they are not getting symptoms and they don't know that they have it. And I don't know if that is or isn't true, but regardless, I personally wouldn't want to take the chance. And so to keep everybody else safe as well, I mean, I want to obviously keep myself safe, but I also want my friends and family to stay safe and healthy. And that is another reason why to turn people down from wanting to come over, because hopefully if everybody else is practicing the same good habits and good hygiene, they'll make it through the other side of this too. And after this is all passed, then we can all celebrate and get together and have more great times. I guess other things that I've taken away just as good practices to try to stay healthy is whenever we get the mail, I actually let it sit for probably 2-3 days before we actually handle it. And then even after that, once I handle it, I wash my hands and I'm not touching my face. I've actually had great practice at not touching my face over the years, because I learned years ago that when you touch your face a lot, you can get pimples, and I wanted more of a clear complexion, so I taught myself over the years not to touch my face. And so it's kind of been nice now because I really don't have the urge to do that anyway, so that's kind of been helpful. But that is another thing too, is just really making sure that you're not touching your face. And another thing, if you're using disposable plastic or rubber gloves, make sure that you are using them properly, because there's many people that are using these rubber and plastic gloves and not using them the right way. Because yes, it'll have a protective layer for your hand, so your hand isn't coming into contact with surfaces that may have germs on them. But if you are wearing those gloves and you're touching a germy surface or something that may be a germy surface, and then you go and you touch your car door, and then you go and touch your steering wheel, and then you take the gloves off, and then you have a snack in your car while you're touching your steering wheel, and you see what I'm saying? The germs kind of, if you think of it in the way that whatever surface that touches the next surface, that touches the next surface, that it just keeps transferring. So the proper way to wear rubber gloves when you're out is to wear them when you're in a public setting that may be dirty, and then taking them off before you go and handle or touch anything else. And probably toss them. So in some ways, unless you have I accidentally kind of cut myself when I was working on a project, not bad, but just a little bit. And I didn't want that to be an entry point for germs when we're out and about. So whenever I went out, I wore plastic gloves just to keep that, safe. But aside from that, I actually think that hands are probably, just without gloves, is probably for the most people an okay option, because at least when you're going out, you realize that your hands are dirty and then you wash them later. Whereas people that are wearing gloves kind of have that false sense of that, like the gloves are staying clean the whole time. And most people don't go and wash their hands when they have gloves on, or use hand sanitizer when they have gloves on. So yeah, but just no matter what, being very hygienic, more than maybe you have been before. And I think this is probably also good practice for a lot of people, because maybe this will ingrain something into people's minds for future, and maybe the flu won't spread quite as much as it did before, because people will have this thing built into them where they remember this time. And so when they're out and about and they see somebody coughing, they keep their distance, or they make sure they're not touching their face when they're in public, or eating a bag of chips when they're out in public and touching things. Or they'll be more mindful of, hey, I was on my phone when I was at the grocery store, and now I'm on my phone while I'm eating dinner. Maybe that's going to transfer germs. So other things that I've taken away from this, and it's a little less about hygiene, is that I think there is an importance in checking up on your friends and your family, just to see how everybody's doing. Many of us may not be as lucky to be isolated with another person. And, for those that are going through this at home alone, I think that it's especially important to check up on them, because they don't have that social in-person contact whenever they want it, like some of the rest of us do who are living with somebody else. Check in on friends and family and just make sure everybody's in good spirits, and let them know kind of what you've been up to, so they feel included in somebody else's life, and just kind of take care of each other. So there's a lot of people panic buying right now, and honestly, to an extent, I get it. Many people on Facebook and other places have been making fun of the people that have been stocking up on groceries and toiletries. And I agree that it is not good to be clearing out stores to fill U-Hauls full of toilet paper, but I do understand why some of the people are stocking up on stuff. And the joke is, if you get quarantined, it's only 14 days, like you need 500 rolls of toilet paper and a basement full of canned food. And I agree that logic works together, only that logic of a basement full of food and 500 rolls of toilet paper for 14 days, obviously that's too much. And there's been people even going through the effort of making videos to say, you'd have to use this much, toilet paper per day and whatnot. And I guess, honestly, I think that's a little bit sad, because we're basically making fun of people that are fearful. What I think more it is people aren't just stocking up with that much stuff just for this, 14 days that they might have to be quarantined inside their house. It's because they may be at a higher health risk for, if they would get this, it might be riskier for them. And they're so afraid to go out in public that they want to stock up on as much stuff as they can to limit the number of times that they have to leave their house. So I totally understand that mindset. I totally understand wanting to stock up with some extra groceries and extra toiletries so that you don't have to leave your house weekly to get groceries, because each time you leave your house, obviously there's a risk that you may catch it. So limiting the number of times you go out just makes sense, especially for those that are at higher risk for more serious reactions to this. But I don't think that it's good to go to stores and just clear the shelves of toilet paper, Lysol, hand sanitizer. I'm trying to think of the hot items, but I don't think that that's right either. No matter how panicking somebody is, I think it's okay to stock up to make sure that you're good for a while, but getting a 5-year supply of stuff isn't right because you're basically taking away from other people. 30 bottles of hand sanitizer, really, I don't think that anybody would really go through that much and I'm talking like regular size bottles. Obviously the tiny little ones from Bath and Body Works don't really last too long, but you see what I'm saying. It's kind of, when you're stocking up on all this stuff, you're basically taking from others. So, the other day we were at Byerly's and I was like, oh my gosh, they have toilet paper, and part of all of us, I think, have that thing in us that makes us feel like we need to panic purchase those things whenever we see them out, like I keep saying, in the wild, because we just aren't used to coming across things like toilet paper in a store. So it's almost like a surreal thing to see. And, looking at the tiny section of it, I was just thinking, as much as I want to panic buy some of it, I think that we probably have plenty. And by buying that, you're basically making it so somebody else can't get it. So might as well leave it for somebody else. So I would say many of us should probably try to practice that a little bit more and just think of people that may not have any and use that to influence our decision of, do I really, really need more of this item that is hard to find right now? Or am I going to be doing good by, leaving it for somebody who may not have any? But all in all, I would say, even though this whole thing kind of began with the mindset of fear, it's transformed in my mind to being, instead of continuing to be fearful about it, I think we should just be mindful about it and know how to react to it. And I think once we know and all start practicing what we should be doing to help minimize it and help it to go away, it kind of takes the scariness and the fear away from it, because if you practice good hygiene, if you keep your distance from others, if you're basically practicing and doing all the things that you're supposed to keep yourself safe, then there's a very good chance that you'll stay safe. So that kind of takes some of the fear away. And of course, Easter this year will be a little bit different. Normally we're gathering with family and maybe friends and traveling here and there to see each other. And this year, many of us or probably most of us, will find ourselves at home. But instead of looking at the negative side of not being able to host a big occasion or go to a big occasion, I would look at this as kind of a rare time when you have this rare opportunity to spend Easter with just those that reside in your house. Maybe relax a little bit this year, or maybe not, get out the fancy china, cook something special. But I would say I would enjoy this holiday, because very rarely do we get holidays where it's just a few of us. So I think that can be something that'll make this Easter even more special. So I hope you all are staying safe and healthy, and I look forward to posting some more videos soon. I know I haven't been posting quite as many recently, but not being able to go out shopping for craft supplies does put a little bit of damper on the creative videos, but I will hunt around the house and see maybe what I can put together for some more videos. And so yeah, I hope everybody has and is having a nice spring, and hopefully I'll have a new video to post very soon.